Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken.
Hey, Kiernan.
Hola, Ryan.
Hola, buenos dias. Muy bien.
Just kicking off our Mexico City Part 2 episode with some of that picture-perfect Spanish that you are so known for.
The kind of Spanish you can only get from spending as much time in Mexico City as I have.
I don't know that I've ever heard anybody struggle to get out hola, buenos dias. I mean, that is truly absurd.
Well, I can think of some people who speak Spanish worse than me.
So, Ryan, this is part 2 of the Mexico City series. What new are you going to bring to us here?
Yeah, so all the way back, episode 18, we did Ryan's 12 favorite things about Mexico City. And ever since then, it has become, I think, probably the hit episode. I mean, one of the wild hit episodes.
Is that right? So you're saying Bhutan hasn't done about 3 times the listen?
I think Bhutan is number 1.
Yeah, by a long way.
Mexico City is number 2 and number 1 in the hearts of most listeners. You know,
I think maybe Love Letter to Rick Steves is number 2.
No,
and that's because
3,
people
actually.
accidentally think that Rick Steves is on it.
Yeah, that's
but
why
one day
we should call all of our podcasts like Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, a Love Letter to Oprah Winfrey.
Yes, but Mexico City episode 18, if you haven't heard yet, you can listen to this because, you know, it's not in any order, but go back and listen to episode 18. There'll be a link in the show notes. Almost all of those recommendations are valid, but one of the gay clubs I really like, Envy, closed. So I hate to start this thing off
mío.
A huge down note. But
I think the earth just shook beneath my feet. My goodness.
I've been sad about it too, folks.
And so if for those who have loyally listened to the first episode, what are we getting today? We're going to get more museums. We're going to get more restaurants. We're going to get more theater.
We're going to get food. We're going to get drink. We're going to get a night out in Mexico City's Little Tokyo. I'm going to talk about some museums that are
Mexico City is a Little Tokyo?
Yeah, and a Chinatown. You know,
oh my God.
Yeah. They have Catholics too.
Well, I know that. Primarily Catholics.
Not many Irish Catholics. So there is an Irish pub, but it's not open very often.
Now, we here at Out of Office, we spent a good amount of budget sending you down to Mexico City for upwards of, it felt like 37, 38 days. Right. So I'm expecting that you're going to have some nuggets in here that one can't just find, you know, just in a newspaper or in a guidebook, right?
Nothing here is newspaper or guidebook. This is like hot off the presses.
You got to put those pies en la calle in order to get these tips.
What he said, exactly. But I do think we're going to have a long episode today. Lots to talk about. I think we should take off.
People love when you warn them. It's going to be. All right, if you've got that much to tell us, I agree. It's time to take off. Tell the cabin crew.
Cabin crew?
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
All right, Ryan. So last time, if I'm not mistaken, your tips to Mexico City, you had picked 12 places. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I had picked originally 11 places, and then through the magic of recording, it became 12. So yeah, what the audience got was my 12.
Wait, what do you mean?
It was originally called 11, Ryan's 11 favorite spots, and somehow it became 12.
Well, how is that?
I don't know. I mean,
we just added in a place?
We did as we were recording. It was magic.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. So how many are we hitting today?
So we're not gonna do it the same exact way that we did it last time. We're gonna go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just gonna I have some kind of groups I want to talk about. I don't want to put a number to anything. I don't want to call it Ryan's 14 tips because I just feel like, you know, we've got Ryan's 12. This is Mexico City Part 2.
Wait. I'm confused because people love when they know how many to expect. That's a BuzzFeed was built on the back of that concept. And we've already established with Mexico City Part 1 that's what we do. Yeah. So now that we're here in Mexico City Part 2, it seems like that's something we should be continuing.
I'm going to say about 7 different sections here.
7 sections.
7 recommendations.
So you're sort of broadly saying I'm going to talk about food. That's 1, or is food like 3 restaurants? That's 3.
Food's got 3 things in it, and the restaurants, but there's also like, you know, what you could do around the space maybe.
So when you say 7, are we talking 7 sections or 7 individual recommendations?
7 recommendations. 7 recommendations,
All right.
but more individual things. So you've made it way complicated.
I mean, I don't think I'm the one that made it that complicated. All right, so we're gonna head on to your favorite siete things here in Part Dos.
Pardos. Okay, so one of the things I've always complained about in Mexico City is that there's not any good pizza, right?
Yeah, no, you've said it all the time.
All the time, I say it.
And it's such a reasonable thing to complain about.
Right, it is. And so there's a couple pizza places, and the cheese is always kind of strange. Like they don't really get it right. They don't really like.
You mean because it's like a Mexican? It's like a queso fresco.
Sometimes it's a little queso-y. Yeah, and that's not
Well,
necessarily.
you are in Mexico,
Right. But look, if you're in Mexico as much as me, you don't want to just always have. You gotta have pizza occasionally. 'Cause I in New York, you look at me, I live off pizza.
Yeah, clear enough.
So I got a hot recommendation of this new place called Pizza Felix, and Pizza Felix is a hipster pizza spot located in Roma, which is one of the most beautiful neighborhoods to sort of walk around in.
Everybody knows it from the recent hit film.
The film, exactly. And it actually sits on a street called Alvaro Abaran Avenue.
I gotta believe that's wrong.
Avenue Alvaro Abaran.
Alvaro Obregon.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And this is this like beautiful tree-lined boulevard that has lots of statues, and you can sort of walk down the middle of the street where it's got this kind of beautiful tree-lined sidewalk. And I usually walk up and down that street. It's so beautiful. A lot of cafes, a lot of bars. There's all these statues that are sort of like, for whatever reason, I've always tried to figure this out, but there was an artist who just kind of had all these Greek sculptures installed on this avenue. So while you're walking it, you can, it feels like you're in Call Me By Your Name or something. And then you show up at Pizza Felix. So this is actually like a really nice place to just sort of walk around before or after the meal and have a nightcap or something, because it's a lovely area and one of the most picturesque avenues in Mexico City.
Now, you've said you've always tried to figure out where they came from. Is that right? Is that what you've always tried to?
For the last few years, I've taken pictures of them. I've looked them up. Some of them are replicas of like actual Roman statues. Some they appear to be tied to this one artist, but there isn't a lot of information about them actually. And I can share
Felipe Soho.
Exactly. I can share a couple of the pictures I've taken. One of them is of Saint Sebastian, who's of course a favorite of mine. Pizza Felix itself is very hip, very trendy. It reminds you a bit of like Roberta's in Bushwick, if you've ever been to that. Slightly easier to get into.
It's a very narrow reference.
People
Yeah,
follow.
people love Roberta's.
Yeah. And of course, Pizza Felix has a natural wine list.
Oh, okay. So this is like a fancy pizza place. This isn't like a just like stop by, grab a slice sort of
This
place.
is definitely not a slice place. This is a personal pizza place. It is not by the slice, but it's a lovely. It's not too expensive. Lovely place to kind of walk in. The seating area feels very airy because it's in the center of this old building, so it almost feels like you're sitting outside, even though you're not.
That's cool. And does it have trees in there?
Yeah, there's some trees in there and stuff. Mexico loves trees and everything.
And do the pizzas have like a Mexican take on pizza, or are these just kind of, great pepperoni pizza?
No, they're all like sort of, fancy pizzas with fancy names and weird cheeses. Like I went with a friend who was Mexican, and he's like, I don't recognize anything on this pizza. I'm like, don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
So the queso is still weird, but it's a good weird in your judgment.
It's a right kind. It's a right kind of weird. Yeah. And they have like an old fashioned margarita. Like you don't have to get that weird.
That's what my wife said about me in our wedding vows. The right kind of weird.
I don't remember that actually.
Oh, you weren't there.
I was.
He was there, everybody. He was
was.
there. But he was high as a kite.
That is not true.
Were you not high at the wedding?
Not until the end. No, I had respected the wedding. So that's Pizza Felix. Now fast forward to a completely different place. This is in a neighborhood called Polanco, and I've previously referred to Polanco as the Beverly Hills of CDMX. And this is like a really fun place to walk around, to window shop, or to buy an Aston Martin automobile if you're in the market, right?
Yeah. Is this also in Roma?
No, this is in Polanco.
Oh, Polanco. Sorry.
So this restaurant, Commodore Hassanita, is actually run by this chef named Edgar Nunez, who has a really, really, really fancy restaurant that's sort of out in the fancy suburbs of Mexico City called Sud 777.
And because it's Spanish, it's SUD. It's like Sud.
Yes, it looks like Sud. I probably always said it as Sud until this moment, Kieran. To be honest with
so
you.
embarrassing for you.
But this place is way more relaxed atmosphere. It's in Polanco and serves some of the sort of dishes that he grew up with, that his mother and his grandmother would make. So it's really homey. The food is lovely, and they've got these really terrific cocktails, and so you kind of get to experience some of this guy's magic without having to go out to this really extravagant, crazy dinner in the Mexico City suburbs. And one of the things I really like about the neighborhood is it's that the restaurant's in is that it's super friendly to walk around. Again, before or after, there's tons of places to kind of grab a coffee or a cocktail afterwards in this neighborhood in Polanco, and it's near Park Lincoln, the Lincoln Park, where you have an amazing statue of Abraham Lincoln facing a statue of Martin Luther King, and they're both sort of looking at each other across the street, thinking like, "Hey, we're two pretty great Americans."
Why are those there?
I don't know. I mean, Abe Lincoln. There's statues of Abe Lincoln all over the world, and obviously Martin Luther King is a famous civil rights leader. I feel like it's trolling our current president just so they exist at all. But another fun thing that happens in Park Lincoln is they have boat races there on some weekends, miniature boat races. So after you've grabbed your brunch or dinner, you can kind of go check out the boats. It's always something to see.
Did you realize that Nunez actually, he used to work at El Bulli and Noma? So this is like, a primo chef.
Oh yeah, Suite 777 is a beloved restaurant in Mexico City, and it's one of the finest sort of fine dining places. I didn't want to include it on this list. It's definitely worth going to, but his other place is more relaxed, and I think enjoyable if you're not going to propose marriage or something. But Suite 77 is great, because it also has there's a little river that goes through it, so that's sort of weird.
Nunez is also interesting because he founded the Mexican Food Trucks Association. So when you see food trucks popping up around the city, you can also thank him.
Yeah. He's when I was originally reading about him, I thought he would be older since he's such an established chef.
He's like in his 30s,
he's
right?
He's 39. Yeah.
Oh, so we have a couple more years to catch up.
Yeah. So he's way older than me, but he's closer to your age.
Everybody knows I'm younger than you. Okay.
So the next place I want to recommend, again, this is one of my favorite places to grab tacos in the city that isn't sort of just like a street taco, but a place you can sort of walk in, tell the guys what you want, and then sit down and wait for your tacos. And it happens to be incredibly close to the Angel of Independence.
The famous icon of Mexico City.
Yeah, one of the famous icons of Mexico City, which was constructed in 1910 to honor 100 years since Mexican victory against the Spanish. So it's a very cool thing to see, and you can stop by and see the Angel of Independence on your way to grab tacos at El Caminero. So one of the funny things is, Kieran, I was walking to grab these tacos, and there was this huge line of people, and I'm like, what is this for? And apparently a Shake Shack has opened in Mexico City.
The New York City staple.
Yeah. So I wasn't distracted, but the line was down the block of people who wanted to try out their first Shake Shack burger.
Well, that goes back to the conversation we had about regional chains.
Yeah, I know.
With fodder for a future episode. But I would say I'd prefer to get tacos instead of a burger.
Yeah, so this place is right around the corner from the Angel, and it's been open since 1968. So super authentic tacos. And one of the fun things is it's sort of near the embassies. So if you go at lunchtime, you hear like so many different languages because there are people who are at the American embassy, at the German embassy, and it's just like a lot of chaos as folks sort of like have these fantastic tacos. And I would encourage you to try. They have a handful of really good toppings. They do fried onions on a lot of their tacos, and they're really fantastic. So it's really busy at lunch, but if you go a little later at lunch, a little early at dinner, you can grab a spot up at the counter. And it's just a really, really relaxed place to get. You can get 3 tacos and a soda for like $5.
El Pastor? Do they have El Pastor?
Oh yeah, they got all the classics. They got Pastor, no problem.
That's my favorite.
It's a pretty good taco. Yeah, I can't. I'm like carne asada guy with a little queso.
You say carne asada very confidently. That's clearly a word you've said more than Buenos Dias.
I can say guapo well too. I have like a lot of talents.
All right, so for your food and drink section, I'm counting 3. You've got 3 good recommendations here. You got Pizza Felix, you got Comedor Hasanita, which kind of has a sub recommendation of Sud 777. But I know you're looking, you want to be cost conscious.
Yeah. I knew you'd call me out if I had more than one fine dining place.
You're exactly right. And then the third recommendation, El Caminero for just your good tacos with a global crowd.
Yeah, almost half the tacos you see me take pictures of when I'm in Mexico City are at this place. Because secretly, one of the sad things about my life in Mexico City is there's a Sheraton that I work from that's right on that corner.
Uh-huh.
And it has like the fastest internet in Mexico City, so I can sit there and like they don't care if I sit there for 6 hours and like do a lot of typing. I don't think I could get away with recording a podcast there, but I could try.
In fact, we've tried. Didn't work.
We have.
It's not that fast.
And so I always pop around for lunch at this taco shop because it is basically my like local workshop.
So do you think that the Sheraton owners think that you're just like a local drifter?
No.
Who occasionally sets up shop there?
They know that I don't stay there because they always say like, can you put this on your room? I'm like, no, I'll pay in cash.
So do you work out of the lobby or a cafe?
They have like this massive cafe that I work out of.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Quite
It's like
lovely.
it's like a WeWork, but nobody talks to you.
Oh, the dream.
I know.
So you mean people actually work?
Yeah, they get work done. You don't have to hang out with them and do weird seminars.
Okay, pushing past food and drink. Where are we off to next in CDMX?
All right, so this is a continuation of food and drink, but I've sort of framed this as an evening in Mexico City's Little Tokyo. Have you ever been to Little Tokyo?
I was not even aware that there was a Little Tokyo. So tell me, why is there a Little Tokyo in Mexico City?
Mexico City is a super diverse town, and there's it's a global city. So there are there's a Chinatown, there's a Little Tokyo, there's a lot of food that would surprise you in Mexico City. I have to say, outside of the places that we're going to talk about, I'm not in love with any of the sushi places you're going to find downtown. Some very strange sushi. But for this, I think this is a really eclectic evening and would definitely be something folks would enjoy.
What's so interesting about sort of the growth of Japanese culture in Mexico City, it actually starts 400 years ago when a samurai sailed to Acapulco and became the first ambassador when it was called New Spain.
Really?
But it really
That's
didn't
awesome.
take hold until World War II when a lot of Japanese immigrants came. And, as we've talked about, one of these great immigrant communities started where you started opening groceries to serve the new immigrants. And then those folks started opening up restaurants. And then the Japanese embassy was established in the 70s. So it all kind of grew up organically. And it's so fascinating to me, too, because, in the U.S., there's only one Japantown.
Really?
Yeah, and
that
it's
in
in
New
San
York?
Francisco.
Oh, that's in San Francisco.
Yeah, in San Francisco.
There isn't a Little Tokyo in New York?
Mm-mm.
That's crazy. So the first stop in your Mexico City Little Tokyo evening will be to this, believe it or not, natural wine bar called Li Teknomi Desu.
And that's LETACHINOMIDESU. But of course, we'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely. And this place is really interesting. It's sort of got that speakeasy vibe, right? So it's not going to look like anything from outside. And you're going to knock on the door, and they're going to let you in. And it's inspired by these very popular standing bars in Japan. So it is a standing bar that's got basically you can stand on the right-hand side at the bar or the left-hand side at the wall. And probably the whole place holds like 30 people. So I suggest that you go early because it does get crowded at night. But it's a super hip space that is really unique in Mexico City and has fantastic glasses of natural wine available and is actually right around the corner from the place that I'm going to tell you to have dinner. So go there.
So you go there, you get a Japanese whiskey or sake.
No, you get a natural wine. It's the natural wine shop.
So you go there, you either get the natural wine if you're Ryan, but you can also get Japanese whiskey or sake there, kind of more in keeping with the neighborhood.
Right. Red wine is very popular all over the world. And then you're going to go around the corner. So what's really interesting is there's one sort of food group that owns like a lot of these restaurants. So while they're operated by different folks, there's been sort of one push to develop Little Tokyo into what it is today. And their flagship restaurant is this place called Amelia. And Amelia is a very classy sort of long dining experience. So this is why you didn't go to Sude 777, so you could, spend your fancy night out
Sure.
at Amelia. And this restaurant opened in late 2018, so it's a pretty new place. And it's all situated around this massive square kitchen in the very center, where you can sort of watch all the chefs work. And it's it doesn't seat a ton of people, but it's a very lovely place where they've got this fantastic tasty menu that combines a lot of like a lot of places in Mexico, is combining a lot of different food histories, right? So you've got Mexican influence, but there's definitely French influence. You've got wines from Italy, so it's very very global food place. That's also sort of like dinner theater if you're setting up at we know our audience loves the theater. If you're sitting up at the chef's table, because you can actually sort of watch everything that's happening. And it's very exciting and fun to watch this stuff get prepared, because it's so beautifully plated. It's got so many kind of strange, interesting ingredients that it was quite the show.
Cool.
So yeah, this is a really hot place. Definitely going to have to get reservations, and we'll link to the restaurant in the show notes. And then the very last, so you've had your natural wine. If you're Kieran, you're resistant to new things. You've had your sake. You've gone and had this
resistant to new things. What do you think? I'm drinking sake every day.
Then you're having this really astonishing meal at Amelia, right? You're just living it up. It's terrifically decadent. And then what you're gonna do is, when your waiter or your waitress comes over and they hand you the check, you're gonna whisper, "Can I get into Tokyo Music Bar?"
Okay, in English.
Yeah, in English would be
Okay,
fine. If you could say that in Spanish, you'd be pretty cool, but not required.
Sure.
Or Japanese, probably.
Yeah, Japanese, you're definitely getting in.
Yeah. And so Tokyo Music Bar is this place that I've only gotten into once. And to tell you the truth, it's a little too hip for its own good.
Okay.
They're starting to do limited
This is somebody who lives in Bushwick,
but it is invite only mostly. I know. It's in the same space, but it's hidden. And it is this kind of kooky cocktail bar that has like records everywhere, and there's people like flipping records and playing records. It's very chill, very low key. And when I was there, it was like the hippest international crowd you could imagine. Like it is very surreal, and you can try to get in if you don't have a meal at Amelia. But if it's on a weekend, it's going to be impossible. They won't let you in, and they're going to tell you it's invite only, which it mostly is just an invite for people who've gotten a chance to eat at Amelia. But if you're not eating at Amelia and you can't get a reservation online, slide into their DMs on Instagram, because that's a way that I've had some friends be able to pop in and enjoy a cocktail there. And it is a hot Instagrammable spot, folks.
And on this, first of all, what makes it so Instagrammable?
I mean, it's just a very eclectic, strange look. I mean, it looks like a 1970s
discotheque,
Tokyo disco ball or something. Yeah, it's very strange.
And why is it called Music Bar?
Because it's all centered around these records, and the DJ plays a lot of like 60s, 70s, 80s, like American pop and rock. It's really like music centered.
But there's no karaoke.
No, it's not like it's. I said it was hip. Kieran.
Well, listen.
Kieran imagines like hip is also a hip karaoke bar. It's never existed.
I mean, sometimes things are so unhip they become hip, and I think karaoke might be one of those things.
Not yet, Kieran. We haven't come around.
I'm
yet.
still waiting to become hip enough that I start back at the beginning of the cycle.
So yeah, so that is. I think that would be quite an evening, and you would feel transported away from Mexico City, and like you were in Japan for an evening.
When you're walking around Little Tokyo, does it feel like an immigrant center that like you've entered a different realm, or is it kind of like a normal Mexico City street that happens to have a lot of Japanese restaurants?
It's definitely feels like a normal Mexico City street with more Japanese restaurants than you're used to seeing.
It's not like a Chinatown where often it really like you're kind of surrounded.
No, like when you go to Chinatown in Mexico City, you walk through like a gate.
A gate, right?
Yeah, and it's like very, it's very. You're like, oh wow, I'm in Chinatown. You don't necessarily feel that when you're in Little Tokyo. You're just like, oh wow, there's a lot of Japanese places around here.
Pretty cool.
It is cool though, yeah. Now, you've done all this fantastic eating and drinking. You got to have to do some culture, Kieran. And
Yeah,
I'm always
absolutely. I
like,
definitely feel like I just ate 10 meals. I
Yeah.
I got to roll out the door to actually to feel like I'm in Mexico City.
yeah, well, that's what it's like to travel with me. Put on your eating pants. Um, so on Mexico City, the 12 things. I talked a bit about Museo Somaya, which is a really, really beautiful, massive museum that you should definitely visit in Mexico City.
That's a very like modern museum, right?
Exactly, yeah. This is a beautiful private home that is run by the same folks as at that museum.
So Casa Guillermo Tovar de Teresa, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've read about that. Yes.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy, and you know what? This
Who,
doesn't.
Guillermo is?
Yeah,
Is he still around? He
No.
let you in?
no, he passed in 2013.
Oh, okay.
But he
it's
was
recent. It's a really
Yeah.
recent museum.
Well, he must have felt for the last several years of his life that he was living in a museum because he definitely didn't keep it up to date with the times.
Sure.
He lived a very long life, and he was a famous and very wealthy historian and art collector.
How does one become a wealthy historian?
Yeah.
I've been
You just don't
yearning
ask
to
those-
know.
you just
I've been
don't ask
looking
those
for
kind of
those
questions.
listings. You
maybe-
don't ask a lot of questions, is that what you said?
Yeah, you don't ask a lot of questions.
So you think he may have been in the drug trade on the side?
I have no comments on any of that. But he's a very respected guy, and when he passed away in 2013, Carlos Slim was nice enough to buy
The richest man in the world, Carlos Slim.
one of the richest men in the world, was nice enough to buy and restore his extraordinary house. And he has a ton of art because he was an art collector. So a lot of Mexican art from across many generations. And then this astonishing library that I took a picture of on my Instagram and said home library goals. That was really something to see. And then this inside the middle of the house, this extraordinarily beautiful garden with multiple places to sort of sit and relax. And it's like there was only like 5 people in the entire house for the hour I was there. So you have a lot of quiet, kind of reflective time. So I kind of just sat there and enjoyed breathing the air and listening to the brook and his sort of like weird, secluded. It's unusual that you see a townhouse and in the middle of that townhouse is a epic garden.
And is it hard to get to? Is that why it's not packed with people?
No, I mean, there's just a million things to do in Mexico City. So
it's a great museum town.
Yeah, I mean, not even joking. This is like 157 on TripAdvisor's list.
That's insane.
If this was in another city, it would be like one of the things people did.
And what's also interesting about Tovar de Teresa was that he was actually the art advisor to the president of Mexico.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What is he didn't just get this house from his public service.
Right. No, exactly right. So, Ryan, do you go? Is it like an art museum where you go and you admire each of the paintings and collections that he's acquired?
The art isn't super interesting. It's more interesting to see sort of the house and how he lived, and the art is sort of like a nice benefit. But if you've one of the things Mexico City is not lacking in is art museums.
Sure.
So that this will not be where you really get your kick out of that. But there is some kind of unique and eclectic stuff because it's you and I love these museums where rich people just sort of die and open their houses.
I mean, anything to do with rich people,
yeah.
I'm on board.
This has that feel. It's a little more like that museum you sent me to in London, where it's just like there's a ton of kind of strange
the
stuff.
John Soane Museum.
Yeah, it's not
Sure.
as epic as that, and I don't want to pretend that it is. But
Yeah.
it's got a little bit of that vibe, like a little bit like overstuffed with stuff.
Yeah, and it sounds like you go for kind of the atmosphere and the experience of the house in total.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all about seeing just sort of this beautiful mansion that is preserved in the middle of Mexico City, and really one of the only places you can tour in that neighborhood.
Ryan, the House Museum is close to that copied fountain, right? The fountain that's based off the Madrid one.
Yeah, exactly.
The Fuente de Cibeles, which shows the Roman goddess of fertility, whose name is Cybele or Ceres, Ceres. And, she's kind of riding majestically behind these lions where I would typically expect horses.
Yeah. It's quite the statue, and that whole entire circle there is a really beautiful place to sort of walk around, grab a cup of coffee, grab a drink, and hang out before or after you tour the house. In the last episode, we talked about Museo Somaya, fantastic museum. Right across the street from that is Museo Humex, which is another beautiful feels like a brand new museum that houses a mix of sort of contemporary and modern art. And when I went this last trip, there was this massive Jeff Koons exhibit that had set the city on fire. I couldn't believe the amount of people who were in line to see this Jeff Koons. We waited for about an hour to get into the museum. And typically in Mexico City, you don't have to wait to get into much. It's not over tourist like New York City is yet. But it was really, really fun to see Koons in this kind of in this space and surrounded by a bunch of young people who have never seen Koons stuff in person before. So just like, I'm super cynical about his work personally.
Yeah.
But I very much enjoyed seeing other people experience
Enjoying
joy.
it.
Experience joy while I was rolling my eyes at every single thing in the place.
So I actually saw the exact show that you saw in Mexico City when it was at MoMA in New York. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of the typical Jeff Koons, like inflatable dog, giant ball of Play-Doh. I have a bit of a weakness for the giant blown up gorilla. I've always had a real thing for that.
He has some really weird self-portraits that are like wildly sexual that are also hanging on the wall. Like, him.
Have you not seen my wildly sexual self-portraits here in the house?
I don't think that Catherine
I've got to
would let
adjust the Skype camera.
She would not let you hang such things in the house because she's a woman of taste. But yeah, the Koons exhibit is really fun, and otherwise, the museum changes quite a bit. But you have a really fantastic sort of interplay between both museums because you can see from Somaya, you can see Humex, and from Humex you can take beautiful pictures of Somaya because Somaya's got is a really fantastic looking museum.
And is Museo Humex, is the outside also interesting?
It's not as interesting. No, it's not.
Because Somaya, that's like one of its calling cards.
Right. I mean, how can you compete with like Somaya, which is, it looks like a beautiful hourglass or something.
It's a good point that you can do both together because I remember when I was in Mexico City, Somaya, it was a little bit out from where I was staying and it just seemed a little unachievable, though Ubers are incredibly cost effective.
Yeah, it'd be like a $4 Uber from Centro.
Yeah, so it's not bad, but it's nice that you could combine the two.
Yeah, and look, if you're somebody who enjoys shopping, or stuff like that, Polanco is a fun place to walk around because they also have all the upscale, stores, and like I said, you can buy a Tesla there if you'd like.
If you decided to drive back to Bushwick in your Tesla, you're going to have a hard time finding those charging stations.
You'd have to pay some tariffs, I imagine. But,
and last thing on Museo Humex, is it? Do they have a permanent collection or is it perpetually changing?
They have a small permanent collection. Yeah, it's owned by another eclectic billionaire, and it's his private collection. But he's not as cool as Carlos Slim, so I didn't mention him.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So the last museum, and now this is definitely out of the way, Kieran. I don't think that you've made it out here yet. This was my first time in this last trip heading out to this museum. I've been to the campus of UNAM before, and UNAM is the massive national university in Mexico City. Mm-hmm. And they have this University Museum of Contemporary Art. And it's located on the campus, which is, the campus feels like a small city unto itself. You're never going to be... you're just surrounded by an amazing amount of people and stuff, and it is a you think NYU is eaten downtown, there's a lot more NYU could do, folks. So relax, but really, it's really impressive. So one of the reasons that I wanted to go check out this museum that I hadn't been to before was there was this big exhibit by Weiwei. That was
the Chinese dissident artist.
Exactly. He had come to Mexico City. And he had done 43 Lego portraits of these students that went missing a few years ago in this sort of mass kidnapping incident in Mexico City. Sort of mass kidnapping incident in Mexico that was never really solved. And these 43 kids have been missing. And if you Google the 43, you'll see references to it around Mexico City. It's obviously a really horrible thing that happened in recent history. And so he did these really powerful Lego portraits of each of the kids who went missing, and it's hanging right now at UNAM, and hopefully it'll tour because it was really cool, and I think it's a story that more people need to be aware of, and it's just interesting to think that he's like somebody who has fought for artistic freedom in his own country and is now feels confident and strong enough to be able to go to Mexico and like talk about their political situation and shine light on this thing that happened. So
That's really interesting. I remember Ai Weiwei also had a piece that was like 9,000 children's backpacks hung up in honor of the 9,000 people who died in an earthquake in China. So it seems like it has some resonance with that.
yeah, he's into grand gestures. So, but I do think it's cool that it was cool to go and you're at UNAM and all these college students are like looking at this art that reflects this like horrible thing to happen to less privileged young people in rural Mexico. And I think it's just a good reminder to, the future leaders. It's like, this is something they have to contend with and this kind of, so it's a really powerful piece.
Yeah,
And
that
then-
is really powerful. Especially, I think you're right that when you're in Mexico City, it can feel disconnected from, all the bad news that we hear that can happen in Mexico. So that's a fascinating connection.
Yeah, and then the rest of the museum, which is pretty big, has a lot of kind of strange, fun, modern art that is, I didn't recognize any of the artists, but there's just a lot of stuff that I hadn't seen before, and definitely some kind of unique, strange rooms and some good curating going on. So the whole museum itself is very cool. It took me about an hour and a half to get through, and it would have been great without Ai Weiwei's piece there too. So highly recommended. And once you leave the space, right down the block or right down the sidewalk really is the UNAM sculpture space. So when I think of a sculpture garden, I think of like one of those beautiful sculpture gardens that is like perfectly up, kept up and easy to walk around. And this is not that. And it's sort of surprising because Mexico City has such amazing landscaping everywhere and like beautiful trees and gardens. But for whatever reason, UNAM has not bothered to invest in this sculpture park for a very long time. And you're basically walking in this overgrown sculpture park where you just kind of come upon a massive sculpture like out of nowhere because it's covered by brush. So it's a very strange. I could have, if I had been braver, I would have pushed forward. But I'm thinking like, are there snakes here?
Right.
I wasn't like dressed for it.
Is that a sculpture of a snake? Is that a real snake?
You can get a good view if you can get a good view of the sculpture garden when you first walk in. You can kind of see over top of all the growth and see where the various things are. And it looks sort of like if you've come to Jurassic Park like 30 years after the dinosaurs got out.
Yeah, nature's taken back.
Yeah, taking back the sculpture garden. So that's kind of cool. But I would
cool.
I would be careful if you're going to go too far in because you bring some good comfortable shoes.
Yeah, bring your gum boots.
And then the last thing you can see on the UNAM campus, and you really should, is the extraordinary Central Library. And I know in the last Mexico City episode, we talked a bit about another library that is owned by UNAM that is closer to downtown and has the sort of flying books.
Yep.
This library is famous because it's got this extraordinary mural by this Mexican artist named Juan O'Gorman. And maybe he's related to one of our, some of our family.
Juan O'Gorman, son of the Emerald Isle.
Yeah, and it's this really iconic mural that has, once you see it, you won't forget it. It really stands out on the campus because this library is massive, and it was actually proclaimed part of along with the full campus, University City of World Heritage in 2007. So. It's a very cool campus. It's massive, and you can take an Uber there for like from Centro, where most people stay, for like $10, and explore these various things on campus.
And you could really spend the whole day there. It sounds like.
Yeah, totally. And it's tons of great street food, and like there's all these weird shops selling like cool T-shirts and stuff. So it's like a little world into itself that you could definitely explore.
All right, I have to say, Ryan, I feel like you came through on your 7 new picks. I like how you grouped them out. You did your restaurants, you got your little Tokyo day out, and then you got your 3 museums. Just to recap, you got Casa Guillermo Tovar de Teresa, you got Museo Humex, and finally the University Museum of Contemporary Art, but also kind of a full day out there on the campus of UNAM.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a good trip to Mexico City for anybody.
Muy bueno, Ryan.
Do we think it's time for the final stop?
Well, we call it the last stop, so...
I think it's time for the last stop.
Oh, the stop ultimo.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
All right, Ryan, we're here in the last stop. This is your favorite segment, my favorite segment, popularly known as the segment of the gente, the people segment. And it's where you and I each share one thing that we did, we tasted, we read, we cooked, we acquired, something that fed the spirit of wanderlust within us, even during the workaday week. So I'm wondering, Ryan, what is your last stop this week?
Well, we had an episode a few episodes ago with the Washington Post Hannah Sampson.
Sure, absolutely.
And-
Over tourism.
Yeah, all about over tourism. I caught a good piece in the Washington Post a couple days ago from Hannah, all about how the United States is actually experiencing a decline in travelers coming from global places.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we were expecting to get an increase, but actually, it's looking like we're going to have a drop of 1.7% this year from international visitors.
And do they think, how much does she chalk that up to the political situation?
Well, they definitely think that Donald Trump is not a great public face for U.S. tourism, but also things like the tariffs and the trade wars have soured international visitors on us. China itself is Chinese visitors are way down this year, and that's
I got to
obviously
think
place
that's a
that we
lot
fit.
too, because those tour companies really bring a lot of people over.
Yeah, travel from China is down 3.7% compared to last year, which is quite a big drop. I mean, and this is a huge, tourism for the United States is massively important. I mean, it pumps an astonishing amount of money into the country. So while I often complain that New York City is full all the time, I don't actually mean we should have the tourists stop coming. So,
Right. Just don't come to Ryan's neighborhood.
Yeah, just stay out of Bushwick, please. So yeah, I think it's like there's another one of the other things that's probably driving it is there's been several countries that have issued warnings to their citizens about gun violence.
Wow.
In the United States, China being one of them. That it is a dangerous place to travel. So certainly that is a wildly bad thing for us to be having happen. And we do have a serious gun violence problem. So it is interesting that while the rest of the world is struggling with over tourism, Donald Trump's managed to make America less popular again.
Well, also, he doesn't have to worry about tourists staying in his hotels because all the foreign dignitaries do.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. You got, Chinese tourists don't need to put money in his pocket. Chinese officials need to put money in his pocket.
That's true. He's like, I don't know. The Trump hotels are doing great. Do you have a last stop, Kieran?
Yeah, I have a last stop this week, Ryan.
What?
So this one's a local tourism spot that I went and saw an art show at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And it's by an artist named Hyman Bloom. Have you ever heard of him?
I have not, no.
Super fascinating painter who I was not aware of before either. The show is called Matters of Life and Death. He creates these large paintings that are incredibly vibrant and colorful, but they're also kind of grotesque. And so there's this push and pull between, is this beautiful or am I revolted? Because what he really likes to show is like body parts and cadavers and like really violently flayed flesh, but it's all kind of abstracted out. So you may just think you're looking at kind of a wash of colors, and then all of a sudden sort of a foot appears or maybe some viscera. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm actually looking at like a torn apart human body. He was this breakout star painter in 1942 from this MoMA show called Americans. And, in addition to these sort of more graphic paintings, he does have extremely vibrant and eye-catching paintings. I remember one particularly of a chandelier from a synagogue that he had painted. That is something that I would happily hang on my wall. But I remember, too, they had a really funny note that at one of these really graphic, kind of bloody, revolting paintings used to hang in the dining room of the head of MoMA. So I guess some people find it appetizing. So you should definitely, I'll put a link to these in the show notes. You should check them out. And I'd be interesting to know if people agree with what the Boston Globe said in their review of it. They said they should be awful. They're not. They're mesmerizing, awash in radiant hues. And, I think that they got it right. They are both awful and mesmerizing.
I think if you asked me, if you just showed me these pictures and said, guess who these were by, I would probably say John Wayne Gacy,
Yeah.
maybe? Or,
Yeah. No,
you
they
know,
are.
the Dahmer paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can also see that where they kind of get abstracted out, and you could just see colors and shapes. Yeah.
Sure. I'm just saying, I'm glad this guy took out his aggression on the on his paints and not on people.
Well, he's not like out there painting today. He's deceased. He is in the long line tradition of artists using cadavers in the human body to try to capture the human spirit on the canvas. So, we often would hear about like Leonardo da Vinci kind of carving up cadavers that he got from the graveyard. I mean, these might be apocryphal, but Hyman Bloom certainly knew his way around a morgue.
Well, now that he's passed on, he's surrounded by people he loves.
That's exactly right. He gets to see this kind of stuff every day in person.
He's like, I just love all these cadavers. What are we talking about next week, Kieran?
Well, Ryan, you remember we have 2 episodes in the archive that are all about Peru.
I
Peru
remember.
1, Peru 2, and I promised in those that I would return here in the fall to Machu Picchu, just the history and visiting Machu Picchu, because that is such a destination on its own.
All
and
right.
so we are going to Machu Picchu next week, and it's going to be the capper of the Great Peru trilogy.
Well, until then, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kieran Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, your Peruvian podcast.
This seat taken.
I saw a production of Jesus Christ Superstar that I'm obsessed with. In Mexico
Well, you were in
City.
Mexico?
Yeah. With a whole temple scene.
Yeah.
Took place in VR world.
What's a VR world?
Like
virtual reality?
Everyone
world?
was in virtual reality, and Jesus got really mad when he came in and he tore off everybody's virtual reality helmets. and stuff.
brother.
Yeah, it was intense.
And all in Spanish.
Oh, in Spanish, of course, yeah. Well, Jesus spoke Spanish. People don't know that. You know what's really funny though, Kieran, is when I was just in the city and I was walking over to grab some tacos, I noticed they had just opened a steak shack, literally facing
A
the
Shake
Angel-
Shack?
A Shake Shack.
You said Steak Shack.
No, I did say
And
Shake.
I was like, I don't know what that is.
No, they just opened a
Started
Steak?
over.
Is it called steak? It's called
Shake Shack.
Shake Shack.
Shake Shack,
Shake
not
Shack.
Steak Shack.
Shake Shack. You can tell I've been. One of the funny things, Kieran, is when I was just in the city, I was walking to get my tacos, and there was this massive line, and I look around, and a brand new Steak Shack has just
It's
opened.
called Shake Shack. Check, please. Check, please.
So, Kieran, one of the funny things is I was just in Mexico City.